Welcome to episode 8 of the Light Her Project podcast, Real Women.
Real talk.
I'm Rachel Strella.
And I'm Vixen Divine.
Thank you so much for tuning in today. Today's topic is happiness. Does it exist? So, let's start with our personal experiences. Vixen?
I think personal experiences, the question is, what has happened in our personal lives that have shown us if happiness really does exist? Because there are some people, I'm sure that you know, that are miserable all the time. Like there is nothing that seems to ever make them happy. So yes, it exists. I think it exists. And I think it exists, though, within our minds. Happiness is a state of mind and a state of well-being, as opposed to you can't. That's why they say you can't buy happiness, because it physically doesn't exist. But our personal experiences, starting with me, has been that I find that I can find happiness in just about any kind of situation, because I think that's the optimist in me. So I've had times where, someone will say something that is really kind of a downer. It really is a downer, and I'm like, well, I can always find that bright side of it. And that's generally how I live my life. I am probably one of the happier people to exist. And because I have that bright side mentality, I can always find something worse that's happened. So that's my personal experience. So in my daily life, I'm pretty much a happy person. And when people come at me with something gloom and doom, I mean, don't get me wrong, there's times to be sad, but most of the time it really is just a matter of perspective.
I know that about you because when I come at you, doom and gloom, you always have a ray of sunshine. And I appreciate that because sometimes it's not always easy to be happy. But when you have other people who are super positive, it kind of motivates you. It becomes contagious. Does it exist, happiness? I I think it does. The older I get, the more I realize it's really individual and it is internal. I'm still on my quest for happiness. And in fact, during the pandemic, I took a course. It was through Coursera from Yale. It was called The Science of Wellbeing. It was a 10-week course. It was intended to increase your happiness. So one of the things that I learned was that we are doing all the wrong things to make us happy. Okay, what we think will make us happy is not actually what will make us happy.
Okay.
So the instructor called it miswanting, and it's eye opening. So the things that we yearn for, more money, the perfect body, true love, these are ultimately not what are going to make us happy. And this is all science backed stuff. This isn't just stuff they made up. So very interesting, and I'm still on my quest. I will reference my kind of Bible for happiness. Zen and the Art of Happiness, which is my go-to. When I'm feeling doom and gloom, it brings me back to center. But I'm on my quest for happiness. I know it exists. It is internal.
Okay. I like that. I like the positivity you spun there. You know it exists.
Yeah.
Well, okay. If it exists, then the question is, what is your happy place? That's our first question for today. What is your happy place? I have heard this. People say, oh, this is my happy place. But for me, I'm pretty flexible in my happy places. I mean, in most situations, I recognize that there are situations that I can't be happy in. Like I said, almost all the time, but there are those little bits of time that I know if I'm in the situation, I'm looking at, I can't do this. I can't. But I take the initiative to remove myself then from that situation.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I know I can't be happy if I'm just sitting around anywhere, like doing nothing. Like my mind will start to go if I'm just doing nothing. and it's not a happy thing for me. I need to be doing something all the time, and that's just me. But I think it is a matter of recognizing where I am and what situation I'm in, and I can recognize, because usually I can find something, but
Mm.
I can see then if there's nothing here to work from. I just remove myself from the situation, and then I'll be happy again.
Mhm. I agree with you. I mean, for me, my happy place, I'm always been a writer, so I enjoy writing, whether it's journaling, writing my blog, whatever it is, I feel at home there because words are my thing. But if I had a physical place, like, because that's what I thought the question was, happy place, for me, it would be the beach. And I know that sounds overused, but I spend 3, 4 weeks a year at the beach, and it is the best place for me to feel a sense of peace and happiness. And in fact, for the home that we go to in Avon, it's called Our Happy Place. You know how they name places in OB. So it's my happy place.
Well, I'll tell you though, the beach is not a bad thing. Um, Coming from a skincare perspective, I want you to put sunscreen on. But other than that, it's not a bad place. I mean, looking at the water, it is so awesome. There's so much of it. It's so vast. Like you could really feel internally small, but internally kept if you're looking at something like that.
Yeah.
It's not a bad place to be. I can see where your mind could go and be silent in such a place like that. So that's not, I don't feel like it's overused. I feel like it's perfect for you.
It's healing. It's me. I mean, Aspen would not be my happy place. I can tell you that right now. So, okay, next question. And I love this question because let's face it, this is the question.
Okay.
Can you or how can you still be happy
Hmm.
when you're going through something that is challenging? So, wow, that's the eternal struggle, And I bought this Zen book a long time ago, and essentially it is my Bible for feeling good. And the overarching premise of the book is that everything that happens to us is the best possible thing that can happen to us. The author says events are just events. It is your reaction to the event that caused your unpleasantness if you felt unpleasantness.
Absolutely.
And there's one passage I really love. Okay. It says, "You are like a railroad switch. Each time an event occurs, you channel the activity onto positive or negative track. Even though the event hurt you or took something from you, you are still in charge of channeling it into a positive or negative track. You determine its future outcome." And it goes on to say, if you've ever had anything happen to you that seemed really horrible at the time, but
Uh-huh.
then turned out to be something that was like the best thing that happened to you, that's what we're talking about here. And he said, we need to look at all events in light of that information and learn to see the perfect truth now in every situation. Wow, this is a great philosophy. And I have to say, I need a constant reminder because life is hard. Things happen to us, things hurt us, things take it from us. People are out for no good. And some lack empathy and compassion, and
Very much.
still be happy, when we're going through something hard. Yeah. Is it easy? No. It takes constant practice, at least for me, to feel accepting and happy, when events aren't working in my favor.
Well, I think it's a matter, for me, going through something hard is a matter of stepping back. Whatever's happening to you is happening to you, but you have to see it. So you have to step back for a second, literally quiet your mind, let it all go, because sometimes you have people chattering at you. You should do this, you should do that. Oh, he's this, she's that, blah blah blah. Like they're like there's too many people in the situation. So you have to step back, quiet your mind, and actually put your situation in actual perspective. And what I mean by that is the perspective that you have is just that, the perspective that you have.
Mhm.
It's not necessarily what's really happening in the scheme of things. Say, for instance, you went to the grocery store and you didn't have enough money at the checkout. You're embarrassed.
Yeah.
It's the worst thing that ever happened to you at that moment. But really, is it really? You have to sit back and be like, okay, I have, let's say, $100 and it's $102. All right, you know what? How much is it? You ask them, let me put this back for now. You have the rest of the groceries,
Yeah.
you know? Okay, you didn't get to get, you know, whatever is the best thing, the can of soda or whatever it is, but you have everything else. And even though you're embarrassed, that situation is not really as bad as it may seem. It has happened to other people. You won't be the first, you won't be the last. But
I
to you at that time, it feels like the end of the world.
Yes. No, I totally agree with you there. And it is hard. I mean, it is embarrassing. I used to work at a grocery store when I was in high school, college. There would be people who would get their entire wallet and have a whole cart full of groceries that would have to sit there until they went home, came back, and paid for them. But it happens. Everyone has bad days. The author of the Zen book calls it the tyranny of events, and you have to free yourself from that. If you wake up and something happens and it just wasn't ideal, don't ruin the rest of your day by focusing on this bad outcome. Like, move on from it. Say whatever, it happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I mean, when you said basically you do what you need to in that situation, but what your reaction is totally up to you. So if you don't make that rash, that's a problem. When you make that rash decision
Mhm.
and you didn't step back and look at it, that a lot of times will determine how your outcome is going to be, good or bad, positive or negative, happy or sad.
You're right. We jump right to reaction.
Yeah.
It's that's a very hard thing to do, but I know it's possible with practice to just take a
Mhm.
step back and give this event perspective for a minute. Okay, next question. What habits or mindsets keep you happy? And is it more habits or mindsets or a combo of both? So, I mean, for me personally, there's a couple of practices, I guess I'll call it. I have a gratitude journal that I write in. It's said that it is impossible to be sad or disappointed if you are in a state of gratitude. So I don't know the exact quote, but that's basically the premise of it. So gratitude, I think, is a big thing for me. I recently restarted meditation. I've had bad luck with it in the past. Kind of had a breakthrough that's been helpful. And there's a quote in this book from a Buddhist leader that said, meditation is not an escape from life, but a preparation for really being in life. And that really changed my perception of meditation because now it's a survival tool to prepare myself for whatever could come my way. Um, I also think of things that make me happy, like the beach. That helps. I know a lot of people who have like apps and prompts and all these other things that we'll talk about a little later in the podcast. But I have little post-it notes, kind of
Right.
like an affirmation, I guess you could say,
Mhm.
throughout the house, just kind of a reminder of like, hey, be happy. It doesn't say that, but it's personal to me. It works for me. So, what about you?
Well, for me, it is, I don't do habits well. I don't do habits well. I'm more of a reactive person. What I do in that moment, that reaction is definitely more me. So for me, it's a mindset and that keeps me happy. It is it is that the glass is half full rather than empty. I don't know. I guess over the years it has become actually a habit
Mm,
for me to think that way, because I always know there's someone less fortunate than myself. I'll never forget, I saw an interview, and it was a news anchor, and she was interviewing a man, like billionaire status, like super, super uber rich. And she's interviewing him, and I forget exactly what the subject was, but he talked about in his mind, he said, everyone, everyone can be successful. All they have to do is put on their shoes and get out there and work hard.
mm.
And you know what the person interviewing him said? She said, what if they don't have shoes? because there are people that don't. And he didn't really know what to say to that because I'm sure in his mind, he hadn't put that into perspective. He's thinking someone at least who has probably a roof on their head, who already, is of some means. All they have to do, well, he forgot about there's a lot of people who are homeless and without a lot of things. And in his mind, though, he just thought that everyone was, just they're just lazy. They can just do it if they wanted to. Well,
Wow.
that's what I understand. I understand there are people like that. And I understand this mindset helps to keep me happy. And I may not be a millionaire, but I still feel I'm fortunate to be able to have the education I have, to be able to have the friends that I have, to be able to have this roof over my head, own a salon, all these things that I feel like I'm fortunate because there are a lot of people who have a lot less than me. So, in that sense, I'm happy.
All right, my journalism background is coming to play here. If I was going to be a billionaire, I wouldn't insult him by saying something like that because I get the point that she was trying to make, but what are you supposed to say? I mean, the point that he was trying to make is 80% of life is showing up or whatever that quote is. Perspective is key. And your personal philosophy is what calls it, what it sounds like for you is your guiding light. You have a personal philosophy, you have a mindset that will get you through any challenge or any hard time, difficulty that you're going through. So we'll come back to this thing with the money bill.
Okay.
Back to that. All right, next question. Is ignorance bliss? In other words, is it better just not to know? Wow, that is an interesting question. And I think it depends on your circumstance. If something that is unnecessary or insignificant in your life that you don't need to know about, there's probably no harm in not knowing. For me personally, I'd like to make informed decisions. So I feel like I need the full picture to be able to do that, even if it's something that I might not want to hear. I know people who keep their head in the clouds and avoid bad news at all costs. Like they can pretend it's not happening. I don't find that particularly healthy. That feels more like denial to me. But that's just my perspective. Everyone is different.
This is true. This is true. I feel almost the opposite of what you just said. I feel like in some situations, ignorance is indeed bliss, but it's better not knowing because sometimes it can be devastating to the psyche. My, for instance, would be if I had 6 months to live, nobody needs to tell me that. Nobody needs to tell me that.
Okay.
You know what? Because I don't need to know that. If you're taking me out to dinner a little more than you usually are, great. I'm having a good time with that. But I don't need to know, for instance, another thing. Okay, say the apartment that you rented on the first, but they called in the exterminator on the 28th of last month because your apartment was crawling with roaches and they cleaned them all up. I don't need to know that that apartment a few days before me was crawling with roaches. Even though there are no roaches now, I am going to feel some kind of way about that. That's the ignorant. Those are things that I don't need to know. So, um, yeah, no.
It makes sense, and I get it. As somebody who's OCD, if I had that information about the roaches, oh no, I'd be getting another apartment. Nope.
Even though they've cleaned it out for you,
Nope.
but
Matter. Tell me that's all I'm gonna see when I go in the kitchen. That's not gonna work. Yeah.
exactly.
I don't know if that's. I mean, you can go all kinds of ways here. I think it is a matter of personal perspective. And there's something I don't know what it is, but there was this poll that went out. Like, if you knew the day you were gonna die, would you want to know? Absolutely not, because I would feel like I would have this timer and a countdown to that,
Mhm.
and it would weigh on me. So yeah, I definitely wouldn't want to know something like that. I think it's more people who kind of just don't want to know, well, anything bad. In general. sometimes there is things I mean, there are things that are bad, but it all depends on how your psyche and how you handle them, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what though. I'll take the timer. I will take if I know, but I only need to know. Like if you told me that, give me 12 hours. In 12 hours, like I don't need to know a whole month, a whole 6 months. Like I don't need, because then that countdown is going to feel really, yeah. But if you give me 24 hours or 12 hours, that'll be good. I'm okay with that.
See, yeah, I wouldn't want any of it. I wouldn't want to know. I want to know whether it's now 12 hours, a week, a month. Yeah, I wouldn't want to know. All right, let's talk about what we're seeing. So, um, a lot of people have probably heard about the book, The Happiness Project by Gretchen Rubin. I read the book. She also came up with an app that is kind of one of many spin-offs of this. So, the Happiness Project, familiar with some of the key concepts of the book, and basically she embarked on this project to discover happiness and documented her findings over a long period of time. And it's been a long time since I read the book, but I recall one part that really stuck out to me. It talks about giving someone a hug. She said, if I remember correctly, you need 7 seconds to feel the goodness of a hug. And I always think about that because when I hug someone, it's like 1 second. But 7 seconds. She also talks about some very basic things that help with our happiness, like clearing out clutter, which that's easy for me. Getting more sleep, not always easy for me. But the book was a huge hit, and it had a couple of spin-off opportunities. One of which was the Happier app. And me, out of curiosity, couldn't help myself. I downloaded it yesterday. 3-minute quiz to assess your sort of persona as it relates to your happiness. The result for me, tell me if this isn't me. I'm a questioner. I'll comply if you convince me why. It's my understanding now that I'll receive daily prompts. I haven't looked yet today. That I'll receive daily prompts to help me establish a stronger sense of happiness. And so I'm intrigued to see. I got an email today to kick it off. So
That's you. Yes, you need some kind of proof, some kind of research, some kind of you need some kind of convincing. You're just if it's out of thin air, I
nope.
don't care. I don't care what they're giving you. You're not buying it. You need to research it. You need to figure it out. You need to validate what they're saying
Yeah.
if you are going to hone in on that. That's it. You're just not going to just do it.
3-minute quiz, like I said.
But that 3 minutes was very accurate. That was very good.
I was a little scared. I'm like, have they been tracking me all this time?
Hey, you know what, Alexa? I'm telling you, I think she's listening.
Maybe. That's
Yeah,
all to me.
yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Well, do you want to say anything else about this, or should we move on to the next one?
Well, I think you should probably let people know exactly where that 3 minute quiz is because I think that accuracy was pretty good. Maybe other people should take that.
All you need to do is download the Happier app on the App Store, and first thing it does is prompt you to take the quiz. So,
Okay. I hope everybody got that.
and I'm curious. All right. Moving on to something else we're seeing. So there's a Reddit thread. Does money buy happiness? Okay, $1 million question, pun intended. The author of the thread, goes on to basically say, that money doesn't buy happiness; it buys comfort and security. I can agree with that. I think of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. There are basic things that we need to get to a point of ideal, and physiological, safety. That all falls under financial stability in my mind, which is only the second one on the tier. So if you don't have enough financial security, well, that can create stress. Um,
Yes.
However, when I think about this thread and when I read through the comments, I think they're talking more about can money actually buy happiness? I mean, can you buy whatever you think to make you happy? if you recall that science of well-being course that I took, they mentioned earlier in the podcast, we missed one thing, and money was one of them. So they did a study on this. This is so interesting. So obviously, if you live in a poor nation, as your income goes up, so does your life satisfaction, because we're talking about basic needs here. Now, if you're in a wealthier nation, like most of us, that was a little different. So what they were looking for was the connection between income and life satisfaction. And they wanted to know if there was a threshold of income to life satisfaction, a certain amount of money that once you got that, any more of a bump would mean no more happiness. So can you guess what that what number would have been for a household income?
For America?
Actually, you know what? It was an individual income. I'm wrong. It was individual income. Can you guess what that number was? That threshold that they found out?
For America?
Americans, yes.
Probably for an individual to feel secure, I'm probably going to say 75,000.
How the heck did you know that? Yeah.
No, I didn't cheat. It's just, I think that honestly, when you look at, in all honesty, Americans pretty much, we're pretty privileged and a lot of times we're greedy. So, $30,000 in a, from a poorer, from a poorer person, that would be like really good.
Yeah.
But thinking of someone who is a median income, so
Mhm.
$75,000 in my mind is like where a new like psychologist would start.
Yeah.
Like so that's starting like that professional
Yeah.
level. So that's where I got that number.
Okay. You did great because that was a number. And basically, you're not going to get any more bump in happiness. And they called it emotional well-being and emotional well-being score. It rises with income, but stopped at 75. And so, why 75? They aren't exactly clear, but they know that it's a plausible number of which you think money's not an issue anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And, that you've got everything covered in the United States. But that's really interesting. So, more money, more problems, right?
Well, I'll tell you what now, and you might, I want you to think of this too. Um, Honestly, the first year doing income tax, when it was over $100,000, like it didn't feel like it didn't feel any different than like that 75,000.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, like I didn't feel, you know, oh, I have a lot of money now. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I didn't feel that way. I really didn't. For you, when you made your first $100,000, did you feel any, did you feel weird about it? Any different?
I mean, the irony for me was that, like, at that point in time, I was working so hard that I didn't stop to think about that and enjoy it or savor it or feel any different. It was more like, great, I just have to do one more thing and file the fine tax return. Yeah, I know there's a threshold for a lot of different things, but I remember at that point, that was how I felt, you know.
Okay, so you were just working so hard that you really didn't feel any sense of accomplishment or anything. It was just like, oh,
I did, but it didn't make me feel happier per se. I
yeah,
just know what else I gave up to get to that point, and I realized that that's also part of being an entrepreneur, but it wasn't as celebratory as I thought it was going to be.
yeah. I didn't feel this celebration either. It was just like, oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I go with that $75,000. So anyone who's listening to this who doesn't feels like they don't make enough money, believe us, you 75,000 is fine. Just strive to that, you'll be fine.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and the woman that was taking this course, this was for Yale students. So these are 20 something students. She said, so by the time you guys as Yale graduates are 34, you're set. You're set in the income that will make you happy. It was interesting to hear it from that perspective. Wow. Okay. This was a really interesting topic. Do you have anything else to say about the money buying happiness thing, Vixen?
No, other than really that perspective, I don't think that money can buy you happiness. Like it's not a thing I can go to, you can't go to Walmart and buy happiness. Like it's not a thing. It's not a thing. It's definitely in your mind. So you just have to make a determination that that's what you're going to be and then figure out what's the best way to get it for
Yeah,
you.
yeah. I mean, I think this is a really great discussion. I think we covered all the main points here. And it also depends on who you are. I think that that also affects things as well. You could be somebody who values that over, you know, finding the love of your life or whatever that could be. So it's up to, I mean, just like we talked about in the beginning, everything is individual.
Yeah, but you do have to realize that you do make your own happiness. Some people wait. Some people wait. They're like, oh, I'm going to be happy the moment I find her or the moment I find him. I'm going to be so happy once I find the one, you know, or the right job or, no,
Yep.
no, no.
No, you make a really good point. I'll be happy if I just XYZ. And then once you get to XYZ, you have something else that you'll be like, I'll be happy when XYZ. So there's always something that we want. Uh does it mean we're going to be any happier when we acquire it? No, it'll just give us another benchmark for something else that we want.
Hmm. Yeah, it's just ourselves. We have to figure out what it is that makes us happy, whether it's whatever that external thing, whether it's affirmations, whether it's something you need to concentrate on, whether it's mindset, you just have to figure that out. But that's what it is. It's not going to be an external thing that's going to make you happy.
Very true. All right, we're coming to the podcast. Is there anything else you'd like to add about this topic?
That was it. I think we covered it pretty good.
The only thing that I'll say is, I feel like positivity, happiness, all those positive type of emotions, I think that they're contagious. And I think that once you've started on a path of feeling good, it's setting you up to always feel good. So, like, you've seen people who are always miserable.
Yep.
Always gonna be miserable. They're always creating drama. If you're on a path for happiness, you're always going to be happy, despite any of the external conditions. It is contagious, and I think it's contagious in a positive way.
It is. It is. And if you're a negative Nancy, that's a term in case you don't know. If you're a negative Nancy, you're going to be a negative Nancy. You'll find negativity in whatever you are. But if you're happy, if you have that happy mindset, it's so much easier to find happiness in whatever you're doing or wherever you are. So keep
Agreed.
that in mind.
Agree. All right. Well, another great podcast. Thanks for everybody tuning in to the Light Her Project podcast. Remember, you can follow the conversation online with our hashtag. So in the meantime, keep it real. Real women.
With real talk.